Every incident in this universe is manifested by the universal energy that is directed by the universal consciousness identified in religious traditions as Jehovah, Almighty God, Allah, the Trimurti of Vishnu, Brahma-Maheshwara, etc. As we all are made of the universal energy, we too are endowed with an inborn capacity to be in touch with the universal consciousness. That is possible only when we are beyond our individual personal consciousness. That means when we are not selfish. Individual consciousness is self-centered. It is the self-centered consciousness that makes us selfish. But when we are in a meditative trance, our thinking process directed by the self-center becomes dormant. But in the meditative trance, we can retain an extraordinary sensitivity of our sense organs. That means we become aware. We become extremely sensitive so that we can be in touch with this universal consciousness that is controlling the universal energy. To reach that state, our mind must be free from the thinking process. Our thinking process is motivated by our likes, dislikes, and ignorance of the reality of things. It is our liking that we experience as our attachment. Liking leads to attachment. Disliking leads to resentment. And ignorance or insensitivity makes us unaware of the reality of the nature, the reality of things and beings, which we can realize when we are enlightened by being in touch with the universal consciousness, often referred to in Buddhism as sabbajñataඥāna. In Sanskrit, sarvatajña jnana. The ability, it is called omniscience, the ability to know everything. That is the nature of the universal consciousness. And it also is aware what is right and what is wrong, what should be done and what should not be done. That is why people in the ancient times have identified that this universal consciousness as a divine being controlling every activity in the universe. The basic nature of this consciousness is, it is not self-centered. It is not selfish. It is full of love and compassion. Love and compassion means sensitivity. That means the universal consciousness is omniscient, knows everything what is happening in the universe. Everything in the universe happens due to the universal energy. The consciousness called universal consciousness controls all the activities of the universal energy to be just, to be devoid of any blemish, impartial. That is why it is called the divine will. It is a divine will that controls our life. And divine will is the will of the universal consciousness. And I have mentioned earlier that we can be in touch with this universal consciousness when our mind is absorbed in trances, meditative trances, free of attachment, resentment, and ignorance of the reality, or which we call insensitive to loss of our mind. Universal consciousness is omniscient and sensitive to everything, being and incident in this universe. And that divine nature is within us, because we too are made by the universal energy, controlled by, directed by the universal consciousness. To be holy, to be religious, is to be in touch with the universal consciousness that lies beyond our selfish, self-centered consciousness. In that state, our mind is universal, beyond all bounds and limits. That means it becomes divine. In fact, we are divine in the heart of our heart. That we can realize by enlightenment. With the dawn of light, that means with the disappearance of the darkness of ignorance. That is when we are in touch with the universal consciousness.